DX. It's not a library, it just means developer experience. That's what we're going to talk about. It's going to be super fun. It's a subset of user experience. Just like I feel like there's pirates out there that are like, this wheel has too many splinters on it. That's PX. It's totally different. I like to think of developer experience as little narrow pathways from like a job to be done. Developers have in mind something that they want to do, and they're going to use another thing to do it. And I got these 4 principles that are going to follow us through this journey of DX, thinking kind of narrowly in that way. So number 1 is, if you're a developer and you're like evaluating this tool that you're about to use to do a job, number 1 is like, am I able to do it? I think that's pretty clutch. Is this thing I'm looking at, is it possible to do the thing that I'm trying to do? And then, if we're evaluating like the quality of the DX, is it also, not only can I do it, but is it easy and obvious to do that thing? Pretty clutch, part of DX. And then is doing that thing fast and satisfying? That's maybe where you start thinking of good DX coming into play. It better be, right? And then if it fails or something goes wrong, that's the 4th principle. If anything goes wrong, is it actionable? Is it obvious why it went wrong? Is there something I can do about it? So we're going to talk about those things, I promise. I care about them deeply and think about them all the time because it's good at my job. But we're going to start in the real world to make things relatable, you know? We're going to go with an experience everybody's had, which is you're driving your car into your driveway and you need to put your car into the car hole. That's what it's a garage, but I just like that Moe called it that once in The Simpsons. Homer's like, I'm in my garage. And he's like, oh, Homer's got a garage. What do you call it, Moe? I call it a car hole like everybody else. Anyway, there's a tool that we can use to get our car into the car hole, which is a car hole opener, as they're called. Garage door opener. That's the tool we're going to evaluate here. It's kind of an amazing tool. I love garage door openers. Get the one with the rubber belt on it. I feel like they're really quiet and nice. Anyway, that's an aside. That's the tool that we're going to use here, but it's the primary tool for accomplishing the objective that we have as people here. But there's lots of side things that I think are pretty interesting about garage doors. For one, garage doors these days are slatted, and they have hinges on them, which is nice. It means the garage door can bend, and it means they can roll up on these tracks, which is pretty nice. Nice little experience there you might not think about all the time, because not every garage has this, but it means that you can use your garage right up into the edge of it, kind of on both sides, and the garage door just opens up straight. Little nice things like that are built into the system that aren't necessarily part of the garage door opener, but are tangential to it, which is true in software too. There's like the thing that you're building, and then there's side stuff as well that's related. Also, your garage door is counterbalanced, probably. You might not even know that, but the garage door opener doesn't just lift the entire weight of the door. It lifts a small portion of that weight because there's a big badass spring on there, probably, that is lifting most of the weight of the garage door. There's opportunities for improvement and stuff all around that. That's worth thinking about with software, too. It's not just always the core thing. It's like, can we improve this side thing as well? So with the garage door, is it obvious how to use a garage door opener? Yes! It's a best interface in the world. You just go boop, and then your garage door opens. If you can get your user interface any closer to booping, you're crushing it, I'd say. I love the interface for a garage door. It's so good. There's also a secondary interface, usually, which is that one, which is arguably even more important. I learned while doing this that the garage doors were in the 1920s sometimes. They invented those, but they didn't take off until they had the keypad. And then the keypad later in the 40s was what pushed them forward, because that's the important part. Who cares if you have a garage door opener if you still have to get out and open the garage? Like, that's stupid. You got to boop it or put in the pad or whatever. Pretty good. So are you able to? Yes, because you have a garage door opener. Is it easy and obvious how to use? Yes, you press a button. Is it fast and satisfying to use? Pretty much. You know, fast is maybe a little debatable, but satisfying? Sure. I get my car in there. And again, there's tangentials involved with this stuff. Here's another thing my garage does is if you'd even go out into the garage or open it, the light turns on. Thanks. I didn't even ask you to do that, but I totally don't want to drive my car into a dark garage. Thanks, that's kind of satisfying. Again, this is all an allegory or whatever. It's all thinking about, like, can my software do other crap for users that is just helps them out, that makes it more satisfying because you just did something extra for them. And then if something goes wrong, we'll just do the last one too, just to make sure I'm true to my own principles here. Let's say something goes wrong with your garage door. Well, there's a big red cord that hangs down from it. Red meaning like problem. And you pull it, and then your garage door becomes manual. So is it actionable when something goes wrong? It is, thanks to the big red cord. But we can still think about all this, just like how we might think about a software product that we're building. Let's do them out of order. My wife's car, she doesn't even have to boop it. Even though I love the booping, that's a great interface. She just approaches the garage and it just opens up. That's nice. Little tiny opportunity for improved experience in that way. Kinda, you know. I also know another guy who was leaving his garage and it crushed his car. So I don't know how much you want to trust that stuff. Again, though, when we're thinking about these things, we're thinking of, like, what could we do? Sometimes when you think about these things, you want to think about anything that's possible without being like, nah, that's too hard to market. That's too hard to manufacture. We can't possibly pull that off. It breaks the laws of physics or whatever. I don't know. Just think about it first and then see if you can get there someday. I've known plenty of people in life where they're like, I can't get my car out of the garage. The power's out. I'm like, there's the cord. You pull the cord. But you don't know that. It's not as obvious as it could be. Maybe they could improve that in some way. Or maybe you could just build it somehow, some way. I don't know how to do it, but the power goes out and it just becomes manual. Could you do that? Would that be better if you did that? Maybe. What if it didn't even open? It was a force field, and you just disengaged the force field and drove in. I just think of that because it's not that fast. Like, it's okay. It's better than getting out of your car and lifting the garage, but it still goes, you know? It's not that fast. What if it was like those hippie beads and your car just dipped in there? Why not, you know? That, at least it'd be faster. You wouldn't have to wait. Well, what if you didn't even need a garage at all? You know, that's interesting to think about. Like, what if people didn't even need your software because they used something else, or you deprecated it because you had a better way of doing the thing? You know, maybe, why do you use a garage? I don't know, it keeps the snow off it. Well, I'm going to build Car Shield 2000, and it's going to keep the snow off because it's just, I don't know, it just Batman's the thing, you know? All right. That's just real world, but it's helpful to sometimes dip out into the real world when you're thinking about your software product, because you think, God, there's tangential stuff. It's not just one thing, this product. There's all kinds of paths to take. Maybe I can pick little pieces of it and make it better. It's certainly not, you know, sometimes it's just about moving the needle a little bit when it comes to developer experience. It's not about just fixing the whole thing in one go. So it's been 15 years or so, I've been working on CodePen. It makes me think about DX a lot because I have a team of people. I'm responsible for giving them tools that I feel like have good DX. The tool itself is about writing HTML and CSS and JavaScript in the browser and showing people the result of that. There's various jobs that people are accomplishing that way, so I need to care about the DX that they experience. And I'm a developer myself, which is probably the #1 reason I care about it. So we're working on kind of a 2.0 of CodePen. I'm not going to get all that into it, but that's kind of a look at the one part of the interface. Can you write HTML and CSS and JavaScript? Absolutely. We have lots of experience in testing that they can do that particular job, and that job is going just fine. But that's just one of many things that people need and want to do with an online code editor like CodePen. Developers tend to be super opinionated. Did you know that? I feel like a lot of people are opinionated, but developers are really special in that way. Really have some thoughts about lots of stuff. One of them, and this isn't even that big of one, but it's kind of one, is about formatting. You know, tabs versus spaces, that kind of thing. Developers tend to have a preference in that way. Great, you should support it. But even more so than the specific setting of formatting, they want to bring their own tool, and they want to have that tool deal with the formatting for them, and they want that experience to be nice in a way. Now, in the world of front-end stuff where I live, CodePen wants to support all the different tools, but Prettier is a pretty huge name in that business. They support a lot of the front-end languages, and I think it's interesting to think about DX in the world of Prettier, because I feel like there was some innovation that happened there. Prettier is just a computer program. It takes input and it produces output. The input is a file, and the output is that file, but formatted. It's just that. So what do you do with that? Now that you've created that computer program, where does it happen? You could put it in your continuous integration process, and if it formats any files, you could automatically commit them, or you could reject the commit because they're not prettier yet, and that's your responsibility, developer. That's fine. I've seen that kind of thing at play. There's also like, you could just call it at the CLI, format file. They have that kind of thing available. That's nice, but none of those things are like incredible DX. What's landed on with formatters, and this took time to get there, and now it's just expected, is the user interface is like the garage door. You just go boop, and it formats it. Command S became, I want to save the file, but also format it at the same time. It took a minute to get there, but now that's just the expectation of how Prettier works, among having a CLI and having all that other stuff. But they're brothers. Prettier and garage doors. You never thought about that, did you? Anyway, and is it obvious to use as well? Yeah, you install the VS Code extension and it just works. Developers are opinionated. Bringing this out to the real world a little bit, a lot of you flew here. I did. People are super opinionated about where they sit on a plane. They totally are. 2/3 of people prefer the window. That's crazy. I'm an aisle guy myself, just because I don't know, I don't like bothering the people. Oh, I gotta go pee. Can you move? I don't like it. I just like to get up and go. So I'm an aisle guy, and I can express that in the software of Delta. You just go into your preferences, and you're just saying, I'm an aisle guy. And then when I'm booking flights, it defaults to putting me into that kind of seat. If they have to change my flight or something, they try to honor the preference that's already in there. That's kind of nice. It's similar to offering a software product for developers and saying, I like 4 indented tabs or whatever, that kind of thing. Also know that nobody changes their preferences ever, but we'll get into that if you hang out with me in this talk, a longer version of it later. Now okay, another job is, CodePen is for writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Yeah, right? Can you make that more satisfying, fast and satisfying to do? That was our third principle. Well, man, writing code is like a huge one. We could talk forever about that. But as you're writing code these days, there's so many things to help you other than just writing each character at a time. Man, that world is changing a lot. I almost call this the trifecta, is that there's snippets that you use, pretty common thing that developers kind of want. There's type ahead as well, which is pretty firmly established as like, I'm starting to type, can you help me out here? And now AI is hugely getting into that world. And all three of them are a little bit at odds. Here I'm using snippets, in this case one called Emmet, to quickly produce some HTML pretty fast. As I'm typing ahead there, I'm starting to type a few characters and it's giving me valid options of what it thinks I might be doing, giving me a list of valid options that I should use. And then the gray thing is like all of a sudden AI was able to slip in and work with those two existing things and make it give me helpful things to do while I'm writing code. The AI, the DX innovation of how those tools are incorporated with the tasks that you need to do is absolutely fascinating right now. It just so happened to work out that kind of gray type ahead thing fit nicely into workflows that we already had. Kind of nice, but it's not without a little tension. Type ahead works in that way a little bit too. If you type, like in this example, MIX, and I'm in CSS and I'm trying to write mixed blend mode, what do I want? Do I want the type ahead, or do I want the gray stuff? Or do I have my own snippet that I hit tab and stuff? So getting the DX of that just right on the keyboard is tricky. It has to do with timings and escape modes and stuff like that. It really bears a lot of thinking to get that right. All right, here's another one that we think about at CodePen a lot. One of the reasons that people use it is that there's nothing to set up. It's just in your browser, and you're writing code, and you're seeing it render at the exact same time. You don't have to bring your own other browser window or set up a watcher or anything like that. It's kind of fundamental to why people use it at all. You write code, and you see the UI that the front-end code is building. But it's true of back-end developers and everything, too. Coding tends to be a two-panel activity. You're coding, and then you see what it's doing. You run it in some way. It could be just terminal output, or it could be tests that are running, and you're seeing if the test passed or not, or whatever, and then that's informing what you're about to code next, and you code. That's a crucial feedback step. And sometimes it's just as fast as it can be, but that's a core part of DX is like, yeah, fast? How fast? Really fast? Good. Like what is ideal in that scenario? What if you wrote code and then your test suite ran, 10 minutes later you found out how it did and then you came back and did it? If that was the feedback loop that you had, which is awful, but maybe it was, you would definitely just do something else. You'd be like, boop, 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 okay, how'd the Packers do or whatever. Like your mind is done with that task for a minute if you knew that's how long it takes. And sometimes that's okay, it helps you be considerate about what you're doing if you know that that's what you're in for, but you're definitely losing some productivity there. What if it was just a minute? Again, even if it was 20 seconds, your mind is gone off of that task. That's the thing. 3 seconds, it starts to get a little more practical, but you find yourself being like, come on, let's go, a little slower with that. It's really when you get down to 1 second that tests have shown that your mind doesn't wander. And it's, it's not like we're trying to force, like, keep your butt in that seat and keep programming, employee. But it's nice to take a break when you want to take a break, not because your computer is just slow or whatever. At 1 second, your mind doesn't wander. That's like fast enough that when you're doing a task and you're seeing the results of it, you stay in the game, And if you can do better than that, by about an order of magnitude, it feels instant to you. And computers are more than capable of doing work in that 100 microseconds kind of vibe. If you can do that to a user, even though you're doing work, it feels like it might as well be instant. So that's kind of a good goal for feedback loops and developer tools. Try to rock that 0.1 to 0.2 seconds thing. Now here's a DX concept, just switching gears into a new concept that I'm obsessed with because I feel like it's typifies what DX is and means. Is the red squiggles. You open your editor and there's code and some of it has red squiggles on the bottom of it. That sounds bad. It sounds like, oh, there's problems. Oh, crap, I have work to do. They're the best. Change your mind. Red squiggles are trying to help you. They're a fantastic part of DX, and I'd like to, my general vibe here is like, if you have some software product that you're delivering that you expect developers to code around, find a way to give them red squiggles, a plugin or a processor of some kind, because what the goal of is I'm seeing line with red squiggles, I hover over and I find out what's going on. Stepping out to the real world, it's like these things. It's like you're driving down the highway and you're screwing up a little bit. I don't know what you're doing. You're probably checking your phone. You shouldn't be doing that. And then it goes, and it just warns you a little bit. That's a red squiggle. You just screwed up a little bit. I'm not going to stop your whole life for it, but I am going to tell you, think of the red squiggles as little rumble strips on the highway. A classic example of red squiggles is TypeScript. I've made a little type for a conference, and I used the type properly, but then I used the type improperly. I used some property on this object that I'm creating that's wrong. And isn't that chill? It didn't stop the world. It just says, oh, there's something wrong there. And as an experienced developer, you're probably like, oh, I see. It's using title instead of name. I see, I'll just fix it really quickly. Or if you're like, what the heck is wrong? Then you just hover over it and it tells you what's wrong. Or, and then you think through the whole process. What if I don't like the hover effect? I wish it would just stay there so I can read it because I'm looking at other errors. You just click on it and then you're seeing that kind of thing. The red squiggle experience is clutch. And in a longer talk, I'll get into more red squiggle stuff. And I feel like there should be yellow squiggles too. I feel like squiggles is a clutch for DX and there should be more of them. Let's just do a couple more bonus concepts, wet your whistle on some other DX stuff I like to think about a little bit before we say goodbye for the day. One of them is one of my favorite things called the pit of success, termed by Rico Mariani, but there's a famous Jeff Atwood blog post about it. I like it because people tend to think of one side of the pit. They say, have good defaults. Make the right thing easy to do. I love that. You should have smart defaults. You should make the right thing easy to do. That's this side. There's another side that's like, make the wrong thing hard to do. Make it annoying to do. And I said, but not impossible, as this in the Jeff Atwood quote. I think that's kind of cool. It's a pit. It's two-sided. Right thing easy to do, wrong thing hard to do. There's a great example of this in front-end world. If you've used React and you have some data that came from a database or user input or a third party or something like that, and you want to plop it down on the page, it came to you as HTML, React makes it super annoying to put on the page. You have to use this attribute, or this prop called dangerously set inner HTML. It knows you're trying to do something stupid. If you don't use this API, it will just escape it all, and then it's safe. So like you can just do it, but all the HTML gets plopped into your DOM as escaped safely. If you want to honor that HTML and just have the browser render it, which is just a huge opening for XSS attacks, then it forces you to use this silly API where you have to pass it an object with these underscored property in it and yada, yada, yada. So it's not making it impossible. It's just making it annoying to do because it's wrong. You should probably find another way to do this. Anyway, I like that. Think about that. And then there's this Japanese concept that I love that somebody taught me one time called poka-yoke, which is basically mistake-proofing a concept. And it absolutely works in the real world, but it works just as well in the DX world as well. It's this idea of like, can I take an interface and just make it like kind of impossible to screw up in a way? The one I think of, I don't know if this would pass muster as a true poka-yoke thing, but I can't help but thinking about it as how, gas stations have improved a whole bunch over the years. You used to have to go inside to pay. That sucks. They're like, we'll put a credit card swiper right outside. But then it's like, oh, I put it in the wrong way. You got so close, and then you let me screw it up in the future. So it got poka-yoked a little bit. Not saying this is perfect, but you got the tapper now. You can just go boop. You can boop it, which is better. It's harder to screw up. It doesn't matter which way the credit card is and all that. So it's like it's mistake-proofing it a little bit. Can you mistake-proof it even more? Well, whatever. You could still drop your credit card in a pile of gross water gas or whatever. Now you can just boop your watch or whatever. I like thinking of interfaces that make it hard to screw up. This is one of my favorite interfaces. It's from Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it's a really weird plot, but at some point he's responsible. This Chucky guy comes out of a chest of a guy, and he's like, you need to return the atmosphere to Mars. He's like, wait, start the reactor. It's amazing. You should see this moment. And Arnold, rightfully, is like, I don't even know about Mars or something. He has this crazy Arnold moment where he's like, I don't know how to start an alien reactor. But then he sees the user interface for the reactor, and he's like, oh, you put your hand on it. You just boop it. So aliens had this down. If aliens can do it, you can do it, I feel like. You can probably make a reactor that starts up good. But it had me thinking about the garage door thing and how you just boop it up. So I have put together this mock-up for us of how garage door openers should actually probably work. Just do that. You think I used AI to do that? I used Shutterstock and Photoshop like God intended. All right, I gotta go. We'll talk more here later if you want.